Good evening. I'm John Bailey. This is People to Be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. Tonight, the topic is what every homeowner and renter or person looking for a home is interested in today, and that is real estate. And tonight, you've got Brad Brammer of KellerWilliams. He's an associate broker with the White Plains outfit, and Karen Mannion, who is a sales associate, right? Got that right. And together they're going to take a look at the market today in a way which I think is going to be really, truly enlightening, because they're going into depth. First of all, let's talk about the current market. Tell us what it's like.
The current market actually is fairly solid. We're seeing prices kind of in certain areas coming up, certain areas kind of holding steady. If you're in White Plains and you're above 750,000, you might be stalling a little bit, days on market a little bit longer, months of supply a little bit longer, but if you're below that, it's a fairly strong market.
Okay, and you have the first slide?
Yes. So this one actually shows median price for the last 12 months from August to August, and it shows essentially a very flat market. Now keep in mind this takes into account all values in White Plains. So if we were to eliminate the 750 and above, we would see probably a 2% increase in the median price.
Yes, and again, this is White Plains sales
This is
only.
White Plains only, correct.
Right. And then moving along to the next
this one just shows number of units. So what, number of properties. This is a single family slide. So it shows the number of units that are actually selling. So those that are for sale, which is the red line. Those that have gone under contract or are still under contract is the bluish purpley line, and the green line shows those that have sold. And you can see that our inventory levels are actually decreasing, and those properties going to contract are actually increasing.
At a steadily...
At a very strong rate.
Steadily up rate.
That's right. That's right. And, so comparing and contrasting single family with condominiums, the condominium market has actually been doing a little bit better overall.
Oh, that's an improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're up about, 4.5% to 5% in the median price for condominiums year over year.
White Plains condos. Again,
correct.
Folks, this is not all over the county, which
That's
is
correct.
very misleading. Okay. And now what are the prospects? Let's do it this way. Who's buying?
Well, Karen?
So you have a mix of buyers. So you have millennials that are coming into the area. You also have people that are downsizing or upsizing. So somebody bought a condo, now their family is expanded, and now they need a single family home to live in.
Does the market skew to the type of home by that categories you mentioned?
I think we would tend to find millennials typically buying in the condo co-op market, first-time home buying market, or even potentially in the kind of mid to low price point in White Plains. And your move-up buyers are typically in the higher price points.
Right. And co-ops, I understand, are the hottest these days.
Actually, co-ops have been doing extremely well. The median price in White Plains is up 15% year over year. It's been a really strong market, and I think that speaks a lot to millennials, first-time home buyers, and also downsizers who are getting, moving out of their big houses. They don't want to take care of it anymore. They want to go to something that's very low maintenance and low key.
And also, too, with co-ops, a lot of times for people who are downsizing, they've had an investment that now they can take something out of, and most times can buy a co-op in full. So there's no mortgage. They only have their monthly maintenance to consider.
Now, what is the attractiveness of White Plains tax rates compared to the rest of the county? I think that is one of the best things about White Plains, which is so hard to find a house in it.
It is a pretty remarkable thing, because we're finding the tax rate on average about 2% of value.
Yeah.
I think we have a slide.
We do have a slide. It kind of describes a few of the neighboring. So we see that Rice City, which is the Rice School District, essentially, they have one of the lowest tax rates in the county. But of course, the median price is much higher than White Plains. But in terms of comparable, communities, White Plains, Harrison hovers around 2.1%, and then you get up to Pelham has some of the highest taxes in the area. So as a percentage of value, yeah, White Plains has a good value point for taxes.
Yes, we should pause that for a moment for
Exactly.
people to take a shot of their television sets and call you. Right, exactly. Because White Plains is your best buy. Would you not say?
yeah, I mean, when you're factoring in your cost to carry a piece of property, it's not just your principal and interest on your mortgage, but it's your taxes.
Yes. Oh, well, the taxes, it's always the taxes because like, the mortgage is your cost of what you need to buy the darn thing, but the taxes are the big variable.
That's
right.
correct.
Sure.
Right. Now, what is the sales price trends in White Plains? Steadily going up? How long do you have to wait?
Well, I think they've been holding steady for a little while. I don't think we've seen any drastic. I think if you're below the 750 price mark, then yes, I think you've seen some appreciation in value. And I think that's going to continue for a little bit because the inventory levels in that price point are lower.
Now, we talked in our meeting a couple of weeks ago, Karen, about seniors.
Yeah.
And the decisions they have to make, whether they stay with their present low White Plains taxes, but everything is relative. They may think they're high.
Right.
Right, exactly. So as you retire, how should you figure whether you have enough to afford your home and taxes, expenses, or whether you should consider a move?
So I think there's a few factors that you have to consider. One is how much does it take to maintain your house yearly? So what kind of things? Do you have oil? How much does that cost? Things like that. Also your taxes. Also the other aspects of what it takes to take care of your home. Like what's the total cost to take care of your home? And what is your income coming in? So you have Social Security, did you have a pension? All of those factor in. And does it make sense? You want a quality of life that's going to be good, right? When you retire, you want to be able to go out to dinner or the theater or things that you enjoy doing. You don't want to be tied to your home. And if you find that what's coming in is less than what it's going to take to maintain your home properly, then maybe it's time to consider a move.
And what if you stay in White Plains, what are your options?
So you have a few options. So one, think about if it is, there's other factors besides what I just said about staying in your home. I think that another factor to consider is your needs. So will your home accommodate your needs as you get older? Do you have health concerns?
Stairways, if you
Stairways.
have,
Could you put a ramp in if necessary? In your bathroom, is there abilities to put rails in the bathtub? Things like that. As you get older, can you go up and down the stairs? So if you think that that's something that you can continue with and it will meet your needs, then staying in your home could very well be an option if you can afford to do so. If that's not it, there's other kinds of facilities that could come into play for you, and one of which is independent living. And I think we have a slide, we have a slide to that. So independent living is just a community for seniors, 55 and above communities, where you live independently. So it's not like a nursing home where there's medical staff on board and you don't need assistance with your everyday tasks, but you are in a community of your peers. So that's an option. Another option, which I just said, was assisted living. And I think that we have a slide to that, And those are we also put some options in the area of these type of living facilities. So assisted living is when you need a little bit more than independent living. Maybe you're on medication, maybe you have some special needs. So there is staff on board that can help you with those needs. And another option is...
But that's expensive.
It could be, yes, depending on your needs, absolutely.
Right, $7,000, $8,000 a month?
Could be.
Easily.
Could be.
Yes.
It
That's
absolutely
where
could be.
I was the last time I looked into one of those. Not for myself yet, anyway. But anyway, this is the point, is that if you are going to go to one of those in other facilities, it's a real budget problem. But it might even be less than your property taxes.
Exactly.
No, it wouldn't either. What am I saying?
Not in
It's
White
a
Plains.
monthly.
Well, yeah.
Not in White
monthly.
Plains. If you were someplace else, it might be. But in White Plains, no, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, so I think it still would be, a fairly, it could be an expensive adventure and I say adventure because you never know what happens when you get there. It could be an expensive adventure.
Yeah.
So it's something you have to budget for and plan for. Other options are, obviously, considering a move with the family or even just renting simply.
Right.
Renting simply, and that probably be $2,000 to $3,000 a month, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would mention Airbnb.
Airbnb could be an option for people who are like snowbirds, where they have a home, let's say in Florida, and they spend the winters in Florida. While they're in Florida, they can rent out their home in Airbnb and collect some money to make that could pay for the property tax. So that's an option. I mean, you have to be comfortable with the fact that people you don't really know are going to be coming into your home and staying there, but it could be an option for income.
Yeah. Now we wanted to move into buyers and sellers, the actual types. If you're looking in White Plains, what should you consider if looking to downsize or a starter home? You know, two different markets.
Oh, okay. Downsizing and starter homes. Oftentimes they can be similar markets, actually. Yes. Starter homes can be condos and co-ops. They can also be single family. And in some cases, starter homes can be a multifamily, a two-family, where you've got some additional income coming in to supplement the costs of carrying that property. Things you look at, obviously, is budget. That's the biggest factor. You know, you're looking at your monthly mortgage, which includes your principal interest. You're looking at your taxes. You're looking at insurance and maintenance. So you have to factor in what are those costs and what could I comfortably afford. And then you have to look, if that's what I can comfortably afford, then you start looking at those options.
For the first-time buyer who probably will need a mortgage,
correct.
How are the banks doing? Are they loosening up the purse strings?
Are
they waiting for the interest rates to go up?
I'm not sure that they're loosening any purse strings at all.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
The process is a bit arduous, you know. But meaning that the supply of documents needed to process the loan at the bank level, you could produce 2 small books with those documents.
Really?
Yeah, so bank statements, income, asset statements. If there's a large deposit or a large withdrawal out of your bank account, it's a 1-page explanation as to what that means. Why did it happen?
I see. So
if
you
should
start well in advance
correct.
Of mortgage planning.
Mortgage planning. Yeah, we usually recommend that our clients meet with a mortgage broker or mortgage provider. And they can kind of guide them through. They can look at income assets.
For a fee?
Generally, initially, when they look at those documents, there's no fee involved.
Well,
now, I'll let them speak to that,
know.
but generally speaking, my clients have never paid a fee for someone to look at and issue them what we call a pre-approval, which,
Yes, the pre-approval.
Yeah.
Always nice. You're pre-approved. I used to use that in direct mail.
It's a document, but as long as the underlying income and assets have been verified appropriately, it can be a valid document.
Okay, now suppose I am looking to downsize. I already have a home which we can move if we are willing to wait 5 to 6, 7 months, right? Yeah.
Depends.
Yes, middle market home, 650, 700.
650, 700 middle market home, I think would move fairly well. Now, you're always in competition, so price and condition are huge factors to consider.
Now, are we in bidding wars where the seller benefits now? Are we at that stage in White Plains?
You know, bidding wars are a bit of a misnomer because listing price is listing price. It's
bidding competition war is such a bad word.
It is, you know. Yes. Listing price is a number. And if you want a lot of activity, then you're going to price it under where you think value is, and you're going to get a lot of activity and you're going to get a lot of bids. And then you'll have a bidding war. If you price it at where you think market value is for that property,
where you want it,
then you might get 1 or 2 bidders solid. If you price it above where the market is, you're likely not going to get anything.
Really?
Yeah.
So
people will come and look, but they'll be like, your property compared to the other 3 I just saw doesn't meet my value requirements. I'm not going to bid.
Now, it's my understanding from our pre-interview that we are seeing a much more intelligent market.
Correct.
That they know what houses are going for, and if you overprice, they're not going to come and look at you, even though they may be exactly right for your home. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. And I think the internet has a lot to do with that. There's so much information readily available to the consumer that they're able to do their research ahead of time, so they know when something is priced properly and when something isn't. So if it's not priced properly, you won't get the activity on it that you should.
How reliable are some of the informational sites? You know,
such
the ones
as,
I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we tend to discredit them significantly because it's hard to take, unless you're in a development. and your house or your property is exactly like your neighbor's, then that works perfectly. But if you're in a neighborhood and you've got 1,500 square feet and 2,500 square feet and different amenities and size of lots and locations and things of that sort, your numbers become so skewed that they become a bit unrealistic.
Okay, so your advice, since you as realtors want to sell a home, you're able to sort out that without
Correct.
prejudice of keeping the price down, right?
That's correct. So
Okay,
we look at
yeah.
when we price a home, we look at comparables, and what are the best comparables for that
And
property.
you show
Correct.
the clients
That's
to
right.
try and make that
Yeah.
point to them.
Correct.
Now, if you're selling, as say when I'm always being told to clean up my office, I'm always being told to get rid of all the books, the clutter, etc. If selling an older home, what makes sense to do to a home? What does not make sense as far as adding things to the home or redoing a room? Or
I think in most
where are we
cases,
at?
and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, I think in most cases, declutter, fresh coat of paint.
Okay.
Hardwood floors are a great selling item. So if you have carpeting and there's hardwood underneath them, maybe we need to expose them. Things you don't want to do, you don't want to renovate the kitchen. You don't want to renovate the bathroom. You only get a percentage of those costs back on the sale. So you want to be very careful. That said, you can be smart about maybe doing a couple minor upgrades in the kitchen. A fresh coat of paint, maybe some new knobs and a fresh countertop. Maybe you need to replace an appliance or two.
Patching the cracks in the ceiling.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
the thing you don't want is a buyer to come in and say, what's that crack or what's that stain, even though it may be 10 years old, because
Yes.
that crack and stain instantly in their minds is a $1,000 fix or more.
Yeah.
For it leads to a bigger problem
Yeah.
that they make up in their mind. So
Correct.
now there's some kind of water leak, and
Yeah.
it just goes on and
So
on.
we always go back to, some of those television programs that show housing and, house hunting type stuff.
The myth of television.
That's right, exactly. The benefit of that is that when you walk into those homes, they're staged, they've been freshly painted, they're clean, they're decluttered. That's what buyers are expecting today.
Really?
Yes.
There is that. There is. Well,
So-
now you've learned something, because I didn't think people really realized that.
Yes. And so when they're out looking and they go into a house that doesn't meet those requirements, they're like, what the heck is wrong with this? Or look at all this work I need to do, when in fact there's not much work to do. So they're conditioned now, that those programs have conditioned these buyers to have a certain expectation.
Right. I have to put tuxedos on my cats. Right. Now, secrets of appeal. How cute a house do you have to have? Should you really sort of make it bare bones, for example, so people can imagine what they could do with the house?
I once
Particularly
heard,
with-
I'm
go.
sorry, I was going to say, I once heard a statistic that only 5% of people can walk into a house and visualize it without the things that are currently in it. So if you have a wall that you love, but it's this very dark brown, let's say, and everybody's going to walk into this house and focus on that brown wall and not the rest of the house. So my suggestion when people put their homes on the market is to neutralize it. You might love that color, but somebody else might not. So make it as neutral as possible, where people can walk in and not be fixated on something that you love, but maybe somebody else
How could they
doesn't.
decorate like that?
Exactly.
What are we going to do
And
about that?
It happens all the time, where
Really?
they're focusing more on that one item than they are the entire house, which could be an amazing house, but no one's seeing it because they're concentrating on this one weird color
Or they're
wall.
concentrating on the 70s foiled wallpaper in the
Yes.
bathroom, which I hear is
Yeah.
coming back. I'm not sure about that. But.
Yes, every bar in New York now is contemporary, down with those tin ceilings. Now, the certiorari problem, the tax
Yes.
refund problem, and the market's effect on your equity. I mean, this is a bone of contention with many persons I know, that, my God, the house over here sold for this, and I'm paying this much more in taxes. I should. Is this affecting pricing?
I think it does to some extent. I think if your prices, your taxes are out of line with your neighborhood, yes, it could affect the value of your home.
You're being killed.
In which case you might consider a grievance of those taxes to bring them in line, if in fact a grievance is warranted. So I definitely think it can, absolutely. If your taxes are lower than your neighbors, obviously that's to your benefit.
Right. Now, prospects for the future. We are taping this program on September 9th, and we're coming to the end of the third quarter. And going into the fall, the market changes quite a bit. Does it make sense to go on the market now, or wait till the spring, or?
I think it depends on what your need is. Some people, regardless of the season, need to sell. Things happen, unfortunately, positive and negatively in life, and sometimes you have to sell at a certain time. I think the fall brings a slowdown. You know, people go on vacations, their children are going back to school, so there's not as much competition out there than there is during, let's say, the spring market. So that's an advantage. A lot of times, like I was just saying, some people have that need to sell, an imminent need to sell, so therefore they're motivated to sell their home. So they're not going to want to overprice it. So sometimes you can get a better deal during the fall because there's less competition and people do need to make that move.
And gives you time to stretch it out over the time when they take occupancy, maybe towards the end of the school year or something.
Yeah, generally that would be a quite, you know, if you start in the fall and you're looking for a June closing, that would be pretty long.
Pretty long.
Yeah, so that would likely not occur.
Okay.
So what we find is most people in the fall are either there's a need, they're being relocated, or they can't afford it anymore, they really need to do something. Or they're looking to upgrade or downsize within the same neighborhood or community so as not to affect maybe kids in school or the other things that they enjoy.
All right. Well, moving across town on White Plains or down into the south end or up to the north end, what do you do if you want to move up in White Plains?
If you're moving up in White
Moving
Plains. All right. Well, obviously first you need to evaluate your budget. That's always my first criteria, and I think Karen would agree.
Yes.
And once you've evaluated that, then let's determine, number one, what can you do with your budget? And then how does the sale of your current property affect that budget?
And, of course, your income stability.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
And if you want to move down in White Plains, we sort of touched on this before, but like going into the fall and the winter, if you want to move down, move your house, from what you just said, it sounds like a very good
Absolutely.
Yeah,
time.
Absolutely. It's a very good time.
But of course, when you have to sell, there's no good time.
Or a bad time.
Right.
You have
So,
to
you know,
sell.
obviously you want to stay in control of that. You don't want to be in a position where you have to sell. Because then I think you feel pressured.
Or
You know?
have to settle, as the case
Exactly.
may be.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think you want to be in control of that. So control your outcome a little bit.
Right. And now, White Plains as an investment, what do you see are the advantages of going into White Plains?
I think it's a solid investment. There's a lot of amenities here.
Right.
Transportation.
I think we have a slide for that.
I'm not sure if we do, actually. Did we have one? But even if we don't, so the amenities are great, all right? Access to transportation, shopping, restaurants, all those things are aplenty in White Plains. And I think that's one of its huge draws. And it's got some great neighborhoods. If you don't want to be in a suburban type area, like over off of Amerenik Avenue in Gedney or in those areas, and you want to be more downtown in one of the condos or co-ops or the rental, there's a lot of different options there. So I think White Plains as a solid investment, I think it is a solid investment. I don't think you can go wrong in the long term. Now, keep in mind that when we look at investment in the long term, not in the short term.
Well, yeah, this is one of the great things. If you get a house and it goes up in value, but boom, it just sort of stops growing because of a recession or what we had. You can't panic out.
You cannot.
Right.
No, you have to hold until.
Much like the stock market. You put your money in the stock market. It's a long-term strategy. Yes, you can make short-term gains, and there are people who do. and do it very successfully. But for the most of us, for most of us in that market, it's a long-term strategy.
Yeah. The days of the 2-year turnaround, like I had in the 70s,
Oh, yeah.
you know, are gone.
Yeah, or even in the
Is
early
when-
2000s, I did
Yeah.
a couple turns myself.
Yeah.
Did very well, but you know that's a bit of a fluke in the market versus a long-term strategy.
That was BR, before recession. Right. And so now we've come to about the last minute and a half in the show. Could you sort of recap what the person looking for homes in White Plains needs to do to sell or to buy?
So to sell, to get your house ready on the market, you want to keep the house clean, okay? So when people walk in, they don't want to see dishes in the sink or an unmade bed. You want to make sure that the house is always in its best possible light. You want to pay attention to the smells in your house, you know, cooking, pets, things like that. People get turned off by things like that.
Clean the cat litter daily.
Exactly.
Daily.
That's the cat litter is a big deal. So make sure if you have a cat, you're keeping that cat box clean. Clean out clutter. You know, a room doesn't show well if it has a lot of clutter. You can't tell what's in the room or how big the room is.
Well, and also you want people to focus on the property and the size of the room and not all
Exactly.
the stuff that you may have in there that's personal in nature.
Exactly. We talked about this before, repainting the walls, something neutral, something that people aren't going to get fixated on. You also want to keep your decor simple. You want people to concentrate on the house, not what's in it, what's going to move when that person who owns it currently is going to move. That stuff's not going to be there, so you want to keep that as simplistic as possible. Get rid of any personal items, your vacation pictures, things like that, because people will stand there and stare at, oh, there you went to Hawaii? How nice. I was there too.
Yes. It's not
So
socializing,
you
it's
want-
selling.
exactly.
That's right. And on the buy side, you know, it's really first and foremost budget.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've been talking with Brad Brammer, Associate Broker of KellerWilliams in White Plains, and Karen Mannion, Sales Associate. And you have been heard on Real Estate Now in White Plains, New York, USA. This is John Bailey saying good night for people to be heard.